Hi guys, for those of you who don't know me, my name is S.L.Ager, and I'm the author of the 11 plus vocabulary novel series, which is called the Cadwallader Quests. I want to say a huge thank you to Saba of 11 Plus Journey for inviting me to answer your questions in her group. And I would like to add at this point, as I always do, I'm not a teacher or a tutor. I'm an 11 plus mum, like most of you carers and parents that are in the group listening. And all the advice that I do offer is based on my experience of helping my two children who successfully gained places in highly selective grammar schools. I'm recording this at home on a lockdown Saturday, so I apologise now if you hear dogs barking, husband cooking, or teenagers opening the door here and asking me to reveal where I've hidden their mobile phones. So we asked in the group, we asked people to send in their questions, and I had a look at them, and I have written down the answers, and they are in front of me, so I will refer to them a little bit, and I hope you find them helpful. So the first question is from a lady called Vanessa, and her question, I will read out her question as she wrote it. Hi Sheena, my questions are for a daughter who struggles with remembering new vocabulary but loves to read. If we were to focus on learning the vocabulary in your books, would you say this would be fairly representative of how much of the vocabulary that might come up in the 11 plus exam? We tend to write down words we come across that are difficult, and she tries to learn their meanings, but the list is endless. We are going to try for 2 grammar schools, one of which does GL verbal reasoning and their own English paper, and the other school which does GL verbal reasoning along with their own set maths and English paper. Do you recommend any good books for schools who set their own English papers? And finally, any tips for children with real anxiety about the exams? Thank you, Vanessa. So, as I say, I did write down the answers because I didn't want to just throw them straight off the cuff. So I will be reading them and ad-libbing as well. So I said it's great that she loves to read. So it's brilliant that your daughter loves to read, Vanessa. And in my experience, vocabulary was always the hardest thing to learn. So even though she's an avid reader, do reassure her and tell her that most kids find vocabulary the toughest. To your question about the vocabulary in my books, the vocabulary is representative. I amassed an awful lot of workbooks over the years with mine, and most of the words come from those books. But there is, there's in book 1, Tangle Time, there are 3,000 words defined there, and you'll probably find that is more than needed. And even though the story is for a younger set of children, the vocabulary is challenging for GCSE children and even for some parents. So, it is hard. But what I would say that the words in my books are not a to learn list, because a list does not exist. Nobody knows what is going to be in any exam paper. We can only work with what has come before. But be rest assured that the words that I included did appear in books. But please don't force your kids to learn all those words. Treat my books as another weapon in your 11 plus arsenal, really. Just use it to consolidate words. And be rest assured, learning vocab is not easy. So don't worry too much. What I would say about my books is read them twice, because if you read them once to enjoy them, then you can let your child enjoy the story, put it to one side, and then later read again and maybe stop to look up words that you don't know, because otherwise it just becomes too much of a chore. If you imagine, I wrote contemporary stories to include classical vocabulary, so children that don't like reading, at least as a parent, they've got all that vocabulary under one roof. I wrote them from my son, who was not a reader. I would say if you're reading my books, focus on learning the words in my books that also come across in your exercise books. So the books that you're using, that you may be using at home, that you've chosen yourself, or that your tutor recommends, such as CGP, Bond, etc. For learning vocabulary, one of the things I did with my children, which really worked well, was something that we called 5 a day, like the 5 fruit and vegetables a day. So I would take 5 words, I'd write them down on, we've got blackboards in the kitchen, I'd write them down on there, and then also I'd write them on a piece of paper with synonyms and antonyms and a definition, but we would take them wherever we went and we'd use them over and over in our daily conversation. So only 5 words. So on a dog walk, I would say to Jude, right, we're going to talk about this word, and then we'd make up sentences using it. And that way we really remembered. Like for instance, I would always use the word veto regarding his Xbox if he misbehaved. So, you know, your Xbox will be vetoed if you are cheeky or you are rude or you don't do your work when you're asked to. And because it related to his Xbox, he'll never forget the word veto. So that's what we did, and we called it 5 a day. And I think vocab in context is really important. And you can have a lot of fun with it as well, because you can make silly sentences so long as the word makes sense. So I hope that helps. Then regarding your question for schools that set their own papers, so I've heard, but I've not used them myself, that Galore Park are excellent. But what I do use, and I think anything he does probably, I use 11 Plus Lifeline by Robert Lomax, and that really helped. His comprehensions are second to none, and his answers are explained really well and in depth. And again, I haven't used Christine Draper's books. Christine Draper is probably more famous for her little blue synonyms and antonyms book. I haven't used them, but a tutor that I trust implicitly has said that all her books are excellent. But what I would do is double check on the English paper to understand whether the answers that your target school requires are in standard form or multiple choice. Always check the requirements. So have a look what your target school's requirements are and work to those. But like I say, Robert Lomax for independent schools and English vocabulary, that kind of thing, he's brilliant. Regarding anxiety, I think most kids feel anxious at some point, and it's normal, and a little bit of anxiety probably helps. That adrenaline pushes us all on. I think as parents, it's very important that we hide our anxiety from them. I'm almost whispering here, so my kids don't hear outside. And we show them only self-belief, even if we feign that self-belief. I think we need them to believe that we believe. And I truly believe that if you believe in your child, or at least you let them know you believe in them, it rubs off. And I would say just keep trying your best. That's all you can do. The night before the test, I told my girl not to worry, that we loved her come what may, to do her very best. And I sort of reiterated, ignore any distractions in the room. You know, just do not lift your head up from that paper. And if we told her that if she didn't pass, we wouldn't feel any differently about her because we'd all done her best. But because she was one of the youngest in the year, I used to say to her, we called anxiety her cheeky monkey. And if that cheeky monkey rose its head, then to put him back in his box and sit on the box so he couldn't come out. And I think it helps because she was July born and she was the youngest in the year. I think sort of being able to visualise a cheeky monkey really helps. So Vanessa, I hope that helps. That's the end of the first question. I'm just going to pause the video now, so there'll be a little click, and then I'll go on to the second question.